one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard was, nothing's wrong with you, something happened to you. And that's what I want the kids to walk away with. I want them to understand that, being black in this country, you wake up, let's say if a kid was born in like 2010, 2008, whatever, and then you 7, 8 years old and you seeing Black Lives Matter protests, and you see what happened to George Floyd.
Trayvon Martin.
Trayvon Martin, right?
Significant to me.
You had Rakia Boyd in Chicago, Breonna Taylor, of course. You probably, if you start your history there, you're gonna be like, dang, what's wrong with us?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Know Your Rights Camp podcast. I'm your host, Aicha Sacko, and today we are here with Ernest, Crim, right? The second or
the third? Oh, you got to get
that
right.
Okay, we got to do that all over. Because I looked down and then I saw two of them, and then I moved my chair and then I saw the third one. So let me redo that.
That's my tagline. My dad going to be like, hold on now.
Ernest, Crim the third. Ernest, Crim the third. Okay.
Yep.
Ernest, tell the people what's up. How you feeling?
I'm great. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. I'm excited. I can't wait to speak to the kids. So, this is dope.
So we're here for the Know Your Rights Camp in Houston. Do you want to tell us what you're going to be teaching them in your presentation? Yeah,
so I'm known as, I call myself your favorite Black history teacher. And I say that because I taught for 12 years in the classroom. And a part of what I did as a classroom teacher was I taught U.S. history, but I always made sure I implemented our stories in the course. I actually minored in it when I was in college. So I started making social media content. And that was just my way of reaching more people. Like I would turn my lessons into 1-minute clips. So, and I know, like for me, it was so important because Black history, this is the name of my book and my presentations, Black History Saved My Life, because it gave me pride in certain situations. It helped me understand who I was. And when I dealt with the hate crime, it pushed me forward to know that I was better than how I was treated. So in the presentation, I'm taking those same strategies I did in the classroom that was, compelling kids and having them say they love my class, to now we're going to be speaking to 300 plus kids doing the same thing. And I ironically call myself your favorite Black history teacher because I know most people haven't had one. So when I'm teaching it online, it's like, this dude is like, that's all I talk about. And if I'm talking about something else, I'm connecting it back because it's just that important. So when those kids hear me speak for 20, 30 minutes, if they never hear me again, they're going to leave with a renewed sense of pride in who they are. And as Tupac would say, like, their brain is going to be sparked to change the world and keep going with their research.
Right. So can we talk about, in terms of history, like what aspect of Black history do you talk about with the students and what's important to highlight in Black history?
The main thing for me, I guess, overall, it would encompass identity. And I would also say restoring our conscious. And what I mean by that is we have this thing, of course, called implicit bias or unconscious bias. And that's something that impacts Black folks and indigenous folks, Asians, Hispanic folks, just like white people.
Right.
So we can internalize racism the same way they can direct it towards us. So what I like to do is when I speak to Black kids or otherwise, I want them to understand that those are lies you're being taught. The same lies that were taught back then to justify your enslavement are being taught now to justify your place in this the social structure in this caste system. So I want them to understand, like, they're portraying you that way so that it can be believable. The fact that we are portrayed as the most violent group, whereas we were literally taken here as a crime against humanity. And the things that are still done here today are crimes. So I want them to understand that those are lies. That's conditioning. Let's unlearn that. And another aspect is too would be learning that we are more expansive than just what happened here. So this is a huge part of our story, and we're living in the midst of it. But your story did not start here. And if you start further back, you have a better understanding of who you are.
Right. Yeah.
So it's the identity, it's the diaspora, it's the innovation, and of course, it's the resistance.
I wanted to ask you, because you teach Black history, what do you feel like is the most untold or not spoke about that you want people and students to know more and learn more about?
I would say, that's a great question. I would say that, again, for one, that we were creating and doing great and glorious things prior to ever having to deal with racism. One of my favorite professors, Dr. KYRC, said, like, you weren't here to fight racism. Like, that's not like our purpose. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's part of what we do because it is a part of that experience, but that's not all we have been or all we are. And I think that's important for kids to understand. And I would also too say that just because your folks came here not understanding the language does not mean they weren't intelligent. And I think that's a huge misnomer. I think people assume because English is like the standard, right? White folk, Europeans are the standards we go based on. And so if you can't speak that language, then we assume, oh, here, tell me wasn't smart, or this person wasn't smart. No. They spoke a different language, that cultural language, or they may have came here fluent in something like Arabic or something else. So I want them to know that ingenuity was there. We were creating things that were stolen from us, and I would, I'm adding way more than one answer, but I
like that.
But and then I'm going back now. So like the civil rights era, another misnomer is the fact that the only way we fought was through nonviolent resistance.
Right.
That's a huge misnomer.
And a long period of time too. It wasn't like it happened overnight.
Exactly.
Right.
So, and for one, like nonviolent resistance is very brave and it takes a lot of strength. But there were also some black folks that said I ain't got time for that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think we need to understand we aren't just one type of people. Being black is not just one definition. We're multifaceted. We're everything.
Right. And so one of our one of the things we tell the students is you have the right to be educated. Right. You have the right to be loved. You have the right to be brilliant. And so how are you going to embed that into your presentation for these kids tomorrow so that they walk out of that room like, I just learned something so significant, I'm never going to forget it? Yeah,
I think one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard was, nothing's wrong with you, something happened to you. And I that's what I want the kids to walk away with. I want them to understand that, being black in this country, you wake up, let's say if a kid was born in like 2010, 28, whatever, like, and then you 7, 8 years old and you seeing Black Lives Matter protests and you see what happened to George Floyd. Like Trayvon Martin, right?
Significant to me.
Rakia Boyd in Chicago, Breonna Taylor, of course. You probably, if you start your history there, you're gonna be like, dang, like what's wrong with us?
Yes.
You can, I had a young man who I spoke to him at his school in the Chicago area and he messaged me shortly after and he said, do you ever just get stressed out and worn out by, he's 17 years old because he doesn't know how to make sense of this. Yeah. He's at a majority white school where he's probably not getting what he needs culturally.
And that education.
Right. So I want our kids to walk out with a sense of cultural pride and just to be able to say that like these things are happening, but I have everything I need to be able to contribute to fighting this, not alone, but as a community. Because once we get back to that community and get back to creating, a better system than what we see here, then we'll understand and see our full potential. But I want to give them those examples so they can just see we can do that too.
Right. And do you feel like it's important, like, would you rather like give them a lecture about the information of history, or do you want to add like components of interactiveness to kind of, what's your thought process on that?
I'm 100% interactive.
Oh, I love that.
I don't like writing speeches. Like there have been times when I was expected to stand behind a podium and it never worked. Like I got to move.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons I love teaching so much is because I never had to sit still.
Yeah.
Like I can't sit still long. I love the kids, love the subject, and I also love moving around.
Right.
So like whenever I'm in a situation where I have to write like what I'm saying, it's really just bullet points because I need to. It was tough for me to prepare what I was going to say with my presentation 2 weeks ago because I'm such in the moment. I got to feel the spirit. Like when kids start walking in, I'm gonna feel something completely different. Yeah. I'm gonna remember something. I'm gonna know something. I might talk to a kid who's dealing with something. I might go off on that tangent. And I think, and especially us as a culture, like we come from griots. Like griots weren't lecturing. The griots, they were gathered under a tree with the community and they were interacting and talking. Like, my lecture style looks like hip hop. Like I say this, you say that. Can you relate to that? Whether it's 300 or 30 people, I'm making sure everybody feels that I'm talking directly to them because otherwise, like, what are we doing? I don't know everything. I just know my experience and what I've studied.
And you want it to be impactful.
Exactly.
Another question I had for you when it comes to, because you said you do like short stories or like 1 minute videos can you talk about that more, like the platform that you put out for people to be educated on their history?
Yeah, so I'll tell you this, especially for the kids out there watching. Before I started making content, I thought about it, but I said that looks foolish. I said, why would I record myself talking to myself on the phone? That's like, who can do that? That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Then I dealt with a hate crime. And I posted that video to help myself get justice, me and my wife. And then I said, well, now I got something to say, and I need to speak up about things. And that was 2016, 2017. I started speaking publicly too around that time. 2021, I said, well, everybody talking about TikTok. I don't dance, but I see a couple history teachers I know using it. Let me jump in and see. And I started making, I just like would take my lessons that I knew the kids in class would be like, what? And I said, let me make videos on that because I know y'all not learning this in another class because I'm hearing it, right? I used to think that it was just my building where kids were amazed, and I found out nobody's learning this.
Yeah.
So I shared a story about Ida B. Wells. I shared a story about Oscar Macho, a black director.
Those are important figures.
And those things just took off. And I was like, yo, for anything I learned, if I can't reduce it to this level, I don't truly understand it. I know I don't like the fact that our kids want to flip through things real quick every 3 seconds, but that's where we are. We ain't going back.
Because of the short attention span.
Short attention span.
You gotta be able to get them real quick.
Exactly.
Right.
So I got to meet them where they are. So I got almost 400,000 on TikTok, almost 200,000 on Instagram, YouTube, all of that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a testament to say that we don't just have to entertain people online. We can educate and still build a following.
Okay. And then I feel like, because I'm like hearing a lot from what you're saying and interpreting that, and I could already visualize what the camp is going to be like for these kids. Yeah. And one of the things I always tell people is, even from when I started as a volunteer, just helping with the boxes and stuff before I started doing this, I would see how like the kids, they come in like, it's the morning, we here, it's not really much. And then you'll ask them a question like, do you guys know this, that? And they're like, no, we don't know. But by the end of that camp, they walk out feeling powerful. They walk out learning so much more. And so I guess my last question to you is, what do you want them to take away from you when they walk out the door? Like, what is that significant information that you want them to be like, I learned this from this person and I'm going to keep this information?
I would say that they should walk away realizing that whatever they do with their life, whether they teach like me or whether they, in the media or whatever, they still need to have a strong sense of cultural pride. And building that sense of cultural pride about their history is not going to come from anybody else, and we can't expect it. And maybe they realize that being from Texas, like what's going on in this state. And also the fact that this campus here is revolutionary in that sense. But I want them to understand that they have to begin taking those steps, get with a group of people, form a book club or something, but then also understand that they have the potential to help play a part in solving the problems that we see outlined here.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important key takeaway. And then another question I had, did you hear about the Biden administration, how they sent letters to the governor? I forgot how many governors, but they sent it to the governors of like 18 states stating that HBCUs are significantly underfunded. And a lot of the students that you teach, that we interact with, are going to those community and to those colleges. And so what are your thoughts on that, and how can we bridge that gap?
Yeah, I did not know about that, so I'm glad that's happening. I, being from the Chicago area, I had kids who, again, around that, the first or second wave of the Black Lives Matter movement, especially since 2020, wanted to go to HBCUs, but unfortunately had to come back soon after because there wasn't housing or they were staying in hotels or things of that nature.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, I don't think HBCUs could have envisioned the upsurge. Like, for one, they weren't being adequately funded, like you said, but then all of a sudden you don't have the resources and now everybody wants to come.
Right.
So I think that has to happen because we can help contribute, but again, it's a systemic thing. Like, these schools should already have what they need. So I'm hoping that, that's something that continues to transpire.
Right.
And I hope that our kids continue to want to attend these universities as well.
Right, because it is a historically Black college. And I feel like especially those communities, are very important. Because I went to a predominantly white institution. Same. And I felt like I didn't have anybody who looked like me, not that community. And then I was always getting stared. I felt so uncomfortable. But then I was like, I can't go to an HBCU because I won't get enough funding to go to that school and I don't have the money to. And so my best option is to go to a school that's going to fully fund me, which was that PWI. And so I do think it's important for these historically Black colleges to be funded because there's so many of us who want to attend. And, you know, it's just a lot to unpack. But I definitely agree with you.
Our kids are crying out for it, especially kids who don't go to high school in a majority Black environment.
Right.
Like, because my school, I taught it was mixed. These kids want to go to a Black community. And when I was in high school, that wasn't really the vibe. Like, you didn't see, that wasn't the conversation.
Right,
So, like, it pains me to know that our kids want to go there now and they're not being given the adequate resources. So, you know, hopefully, I mean, we always make a way. So I'm hoping that there's somebody, you know, philanthropist, somebody that is in that realm that can do something to help out, gets the ball rolling, but it has to be a systemic change for it to be, you know, something that sustains.
Agreed. Definitely a systemic change. Well, I definitely want to thank you for coming and speaking with me and speaking to us on the Know Your Rights Camp podcast. We greatly appreciate you. And I definitely cannot wait to see the presentation tomorrow because I'm going to be the one sitting there learning a couple things. But of course, to our audience, thank you so much for watching. And be sure to follow us on our socials at Your Rights Camp. And be sure to check out our website at knowyourrightscamp.org. I'm your host, Aicha, and I will see you next time.